might seem crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here, you can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
Erikson describes psychology to be one of the factors that make up identity. In his 6th stage of psychosocial development, intimacy versus isolation, he states that it arises after we have developed a sense of self in adolescence and we are now ready to share our life with others. Erikson believed that we must have a strong sense of self before we can develop successful intimate relationships. Adults who do not develop a positive self-concept in adolescence may experience feelings of loneliness and emotional isolation. He states that identity established during late adolescence serves as the basis for resolution to future psychosocial tasks during the years of early, middle, and late adulthood. In a study done by Demir on happiness on emerging adults, they found first that emotional security and companionship appeared as the strongest features of romantic relationship quality that predicted happiness. And secondly, they found that identity formation moderated the relationship between relationship quality and happiness, such that emerging adults were happier when they experienced high-quality relationships at high levels of identity formation. This coincides with Erikson's theory of intimacy and that it is a major factor in promoting happiness. Are you in a relationship?
Yeah.
Okay, and not being single anymore, do you feel happy with the loss of some independence?
I feel like I'm not really losing independence because you can still be in a relationship and have that one person who makes you happy all the time and still be independent.
Okay. Here, the participant stated that she was in a relationship and how it does not affect her being independent. She stated that you can be in a relationship and still have independence. It is not only her readiness to share her life with someone else, but also this realization of being independent that helps her achieve a sense of identity. Therefore, independence and intimacy in young adults is a major aspect to achieve optimal sense of identity, and in turn can also have a positive effect on happiness.
Go. Societal norms and expectations vary around the world. Do you think societal values influence your happiness?
Yeah, kinda, I think so, because you don't really associate, like, working at McDonald's with being happy. You kind of want to, if you're, like, I don't know, in a job that's kind of high up, in terms of, like, social status, like a doctor or something.
Right.
That's what you would associate with happiness.
Okay.
Erikson states that societies are changing over time and that people change alongside as a result of such social forces. For my interview, the participant stated that societal influences do affect his happiness. An example mentioned was that working at a low-paying job versus a higher-paying job isn't as fulfilling. It is important to note that not only do societal influences affect happiness, but that happiness is attained through following social norms in society. It is stated that every society has its own social age clock and a series of age-related expectations about what an individual is supposed to accomplish by a particular time. The participant's answer could be heavily influenced by this idea since it is in a young adult's life where preparation for the future begins. Furthermore, when asked if the integration of culture affected his happiness, the participant stated that there is no such effect on his happiness, as he elaborated that he had little cultural influence growing up, which could also explain why his values follow those of Western society.
Personally, I believe that societal norms do affect happiness. Personally, my happiness, because I know what's expected of me every day, and sometimes it's not easy to just function in that way. Your feelings don't always go with the flow in terms of what society expects of you. So in terms of education, in terms of work, all these things, I want to fulfill my passions, and sometimes it doesn't line up with what society expects of me, and that does affect my happiness.
How do you think the integration of your culture's expectations and Toronto's societal expectations have affected your happiness?
I think that they have equally affected my happiness because on both hands, they both require you to abide by things that aren't natural to yourself. But one thing I will say is that in the Western Hemisphere, we have the ideals that you need to work 24/7. And in that case, I feel like being a Canadian citizen and having the pleasure to go back and visit my own background, which is I'm from Africa, I would say that I feel like your work follows you home when living in the Western Hemisphere, because we're not exactly a culturally driven society. We are made up of many cultures. So I think what combines and unites us all is what we all have in common, is what I'm trying to say, is that we all have to work. So I think that's the driving force behind our country and behind this entire world.
And you're saying that this affects your happiness?
It affects my happiness because where my parents are from, it's not like that. It's the complete opposite. You work to sustain a life to live. And I feel like here, it's kind of the opposite. We tell ourselves that we're working to sustain life, but life is work. It becomes you here. You don't have a moment to yourself. And that's a problem. I need a moment.
My respondent states that both societal and Western cultural expectations have affected her happiness in the way that they both require adopting behaviors and customs that aren't always going to be regular to one's natural self. For example, working. This relates to George Herbert Mead's theory that explains that the meaning of one's act is complete only if the act is answered by another person's, and that actions that conform will be answered by affirmative responses. Since work ethic and earning a high income is positively responded to, it is more likely that individuals will seek this. My respondent's idea of happiness contains having moments to herself and a peace of mind. Essentially, if these values were upheld in society, it would give her meaning for peace more completeness. In addition, my respondent stated that societal norms affect her happiness because it's not easy to function in the way society expects you to. This relates to the theory of V. Hoven, inspired by Maslow, which states that societies differ in social well-being because differences in happiness are likely to be due to what people value. If society places value on certain materialistic things, for example, or a higher paying job, individuals will do the same. However, seeking out a job with a high income will not always match with what one is passionate about, which is maybe a job that pays lower but brings real satisfaction into one's life.
According to Erickson, the biological system causes wide variations in the formation of identity. The variations are dependent on both genetic and environmental factors. For example, changes in the aging process of an individual may differ their response toward aging. Additionally, during early adulthood, biological changes cause appearance changes, which affect identity. According to Erickson, there is generally weight increase and height decrease for men and women. For individuals that strongly identify with their appearance, their identity and self-esteem may become hindered.
How have your views on happiness changed throughout your transition from childhood to adulthood?
I think now I have like a different idea of what happiness is. Like when I was younger, certain things I thought would still make me happy when I was younger. Don't. Like Christmas, for example. It's like I think I wanted more stuff back then. Like, but now it's like there's not as much material stuff as before.
According to the participant of my study, she stated that the transition from childhood to adulthood definitely impacted her views of happiness. She stated that her views of happiness have changed because she became more conscious of others and internal characteristics versus external material items such as Christmas gifts. In an article written by Glaser from New York University about the effects of identity development in the brain, it was said that hormones play a huge role in developing identity. However, problems may occur because often societal expectations and situations may lead to lack of self-confidence and uncertain sense of self. Therefore, the changes due to changes in the hormones such as testosterone and estrogen intersect with society and affects one's identity development.
According to Erickson, family and friends play a key role in the lives of young adults as they aid to influence the development of identity. From the first moments of life, we are continuously depending on our family regardless of what the situation may be. With the constant love and support received from family and friends, this can guide our lives to becoming a happier individual.
How have your family and friends influenced your happiness?
My family and friends are a big factor for my happiness. They support me every day and they're very positive with me.
Okay, and on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, how much does your family and friends influence your happiness?
I'd say 9.
According to the participant of my study, he stated that family and friends are big factors towards his happiness as they support him in everyday situations and always remain positive of him. Kroger states that long-standing friendships and family networks have been identified by young adults as becoming increasingly more important to them, leading towards a strong sense of individual identity. It is evident that friendships and families are extremely important in the lives and development of young adults. Additionally, the subject of my study also stated that from a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most, his family and friends influence his happiness deeply, choosing the number 9. Moreover, young adults aspire to focus their time socializing with a smaller number of close friends compared to late adolescents, according to Kroger. This can also relate to Erickson's stages of development, identity versus role confusion, in which young adolescents are beginning to develop a sense of self by trying different roles in order to form a single identity while integrating with friends. Overall, through Erickson's identity development, it is clearly demonstrated that individuals who have closer and stronger family ties tend to be happier throughout their identity development than those who lack this advantage.